Hello everybody, my name's Tom and thanks for taking the time out to watch this video. This will be part 2 in my NodeCanvas series. Today we're going to cover having a navmesh agent follow a bunch of waypoints. And just to give you an idea of what this project will be like, let me play it and you guys can figure out if you want to watch it or not. So here we have our cube, which represents our character, and the spheres are the waypoints in the waypoint collection. If you look at the cube, you'll notice there is a waypoint navigation script, which has a reference to a collection of waypoints, which is the waypoint path. You also have the ability to select waypoints at random. So if you check that checkbox, it'll select one of these 4 waypoints at random. Next, we have idle time range, which allows you to set a random amount of time that the character will wait at the current waypoint and before moving. And then the last option you could set is follow waypoint. When that is unchecked, the character will go to the next waypoint and no longer follow the waypoint path. Again, if you check that, they will continue to follow the waypoint path. Okay, so next, just to go over a couple of the scripts that this project uses. The first one is the waypoint path, and it's pretty simple. It's just a list of transforms, which are the waypoints. And then we also have a waypoint navigation script. I have these 2 scripts located on my GitHub page, and I'll include that in the description so you don't have to type these out or pause the video. But just to go over the script real quick, so we have our waypoint path, Boolean value to set or enable random patrols. The current waypoint is automatically defaulted to -1. These are variables for our timers. This is the idle time range, allows you to set the idle wait time that the character will stay at the waypoint. Then we have our start method. So if the idle time before moving is equal to 0, pick a random idle time value before moving. Here we just set the idle time to 0 and then update. We're just incrementing the idle timer by time.delta time. This is the method to increase the current waypoint or possibly pick a waypoint at random. Just a method to get the amount of time that you've been in the idle state. This method resets the waypoint idle time. Has waypoint network is just a method that will return true or false depending on if a waypoint path has been configured. Current waypoint just is a getter to get the current waypoint, and then the last method is get waypoint position, which will increment the next waypoint if increment parameter is equal to true. And then return vector for that particular waypoint. Okay, so again, if you want this code, it's up on my GitHub, and you can get that into the description. All right, so what I'm going to do here is delete the cube, delete the waypoint path, and start over from scratch so you guys could see what I did. So the first thing we want to do is create our cube, which will represent our character. So let's add a navmesh agent. We also want to create an empty game object and rename that to waypoint path. And let's move up our character. And also I have some materials here. These are just straight materials. I'm going to drag the blue onto the cube just so it's a little more visible. And then the waypoint path, I'm going to create a sphere and nest that in here and also drag red material onto the sphere, which represents our waypoint. All right. Now we got to duplicate this several times. So if you hold Control D and hit that a couple times, you'll be able to duplicate the spheres. So now we want to move them into the appropriate order. So select sphere and then move it where you want. Then go to the next one and move it where you want. Then go to the next one and move it to where you want. All right. So next, you want to select waypoint path, and we're going to add a script. And it's the waypoint path script. And we want to increase the number of elements that will hold. And then just drag and drop each one of the waypoints over. And we should be good. All right, so now our waypoint path is configured. Now we want to add another script, which is waypoint navigation. And this is what allows our character to follow the waypoint path. So the first thing we want to do is drag over our waypoint path. I think that's it for that. So the next thing we want to do is add a finite state machine owner and click on create new. What this allows us to do is handle our states. So right now we're just going to start out with one, which will handle the walking in idle state, and probably at some point add a couple other states for combat or something like that. So next we want to click on subgraphs and go to subbehavior tree. And then let's create a new behavior tree by clicking on create new. And I have a folder that I created where I store my behavior trees. So just select that. And let's call it idle walking state. Okay, so next you can click on behavior tree, and let's right click and select composites, and we're going to pick a sequencer which just executes the child nodes in order from left to right. And next we want to create a child node, and if you left click and drag down, you can create a node, and we're going to select a binary selector. So that's under composites. And we're going to assign a condition task. So click on that button. And here we're just going to check Boolean. And you'll notice that there's a value A here along with a drop-down box. If you select that drop-down box, you can select cube, graph, or dynamic. So we're going to want to select cube, but before we can do that, we need to add some variables that we will store in our Blackboard. And these Blackboard variables allow NodeCanvas to communicate to our waypoint navigation script. So that's what we're going to do next. So click on Add Variables. And if you type in follow, you'll see that there is a follow waypoint path property under the waypoint navigation category. That's one of the cool things about NodeCanvas, is that it's able to find methods and properties on your classes with this autocomplete. So just select that. And I'm just going to rename this so it's a capital. I like to do that. Next, click on add variable again, and we're going to add a variable for idle time before moving. And again, I'm just going to make this a capital. And then, whoops. Then next we want to click on add variable again and type in current waypoint, which is an integer. And then the last thing we need to do is add a float for our walk speed. So select that and type in walk speed and set a value of 5. Okay. So now over on our binary selector, when we go to cube, you'll notice that we have a bunch of variables that we can choose from. So for this, we want to select follow waypoint path, and we want to leave that as true. All right. The next thing we want to do is drag over another node and select composites again and select sequencer. Okay. And here we want to drag on another condition. This is a condition node. And if we assign that, we want to check Boolean, or actually this is check function. And here we have a select method. So we can type in the method that we want, and that's has waypoint network. So this ensures that a waypoint network has been configured, and we want that to true. And then we want to have another condition. So if you click on assign condition task again, it'll let you create another one. And this time we want to do check function, select method, and then get time in idle state. And here we want to see that it's greater than, and select this little radio box, and then from here under cube, select idle time before moving. Okay. So now what the sequencer is going to do, if these two conditions in this node are true, it's going to execute this action node. Okay. So select assign action task. And we want to do function again, execute function. And we're going to select a method, which is get waypoint position. And you'll notice that there is a checkbox for increment. So if we check that, it's going to tell this method to pass in the value true, which means we want to get the next waypoint position, so increment it. And we also want to save the return value in a dynamic variable. Now, dynamic variables are just a temporary storage location to hold some data. By default, they have an underscore, so we'll leave that there and then type in active waypoint. Next, we want to click on assign action task again, and we're going to type in seek vector 3. The seek method is built into NodeCanvas. So if we select this radio button by target position, we could then want to select dynamic variable, and we're going to set in the active waypoint, and then the speed we want to click on the radio box and select cube and type in, select walk speed, and keep distance we could leave as is. Next, we want to click on assign action task again, and here we want to do function, execute function, and select method and reset waypoint idle time. So here, I think we're just about set. The one other thing we want to do is just add another task here. So if we're following the waypoint path, that's true. We come down to this node. If all these conditions are true, we execute this node here. At some point, we'll probably do something for this right here when follow waypoint path is equal to false. But for now, we'll just leave this as an empty task. Okay, so let's see if everything works correctly. And as you can see, it went to the first waypoint, then it went to the second waypoint. It's pausing 1 to 3 seconds. So let's check our random patrol. And it is following a random patrol there. And follow waypoint path. And it just pauses. And now it starts again. And you can see here what's happening. So here it's following the waypoint path. And when it gets to a location, it stops. All right. And then it starts back up. All right, guys, I hope you found this useful. Please leave comments or questions, and I'll try to answer them the best I can. Hopefully you found this video useful. Thanks. Take care.